going to begin our work session at 6:30. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation. All right. First up, we have our student representatives. Aaron?
Yes, thank you. Oh, Riley and Grace, how are you? Excellent. Okay, so two questions that I sent you an email. I'll have to double check, and maybe I left you off. If I did, I apologize.
It's possible that I wasn't able to find.
All right. So these are the same questions we asked our student reps last board meeting. First one is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? And the second one is, what should we start as a district, continue doing, or keep and stop? And so the reason we're asking these questions is because we're starting the process of our strategic plan for the next 6 years. And we're going to have a group of probably 25 individuals that represent the district. So students, administrators, teachers, classified staff, and hopefully some parents, looking at all the feedback we're getting from the 20+ meetings that Les and I are facilitating. And today we completed our 12th meeting, I think. So we're more than halfway done with our plan so far. So if you have some thoughts as far as what should students know and be able to do, and as Grace said, it's a little vague. And so I said, yeah, it was open-ended. It was intended to be, and we're just curious to know what you think. And as graduating seniors, it could be as you prepare to, for the next step in what your 13th year and what that looks like. And then the second question is, what should we start doing, stop doing, keep doing? And then after that, if you could just tell us what's going on. Because I know there's a bunch going on at the high school right now. Okay.
Okay, go.
So for the first question, what should students know and be able to do? Like I said, it was a little bit vague, but I put down like in my notes, kind of just like overall preparedness for college and like post high school plans. Because I mean, for me, it's easy because I've already been accepted and admitted and like in my housing process for college. But I know there's a lot of people who still don't know what they're going to do or trying to figure out scholarships, don't know if they're even going to go to college. And I mean, I would say the school's doing a pretty good job at like having us do stuff to prepare, but I think definitely like one-on-one, if possible, with each student to figure out that plan would be good.
I think overall for students throughout their whole process of high school, I think that things that not even can only be used in their future learning, but life in general, for students to learn how to like genuinely interact well with others, because I feel like as time has gone on in our generation, students are really shying away from that, and like they literally cannot hold a normal conversation or have small talk, which you need in the real world in so many different jobs. So just like fostering that all throughout high school. And then another thing, which this is going to seem kind of like I just obviously pretty simple, but learning the ability to learn, because obviously you learn so many things in high school, and some of it you might not really use in the real world, but you will use the ability of learning new things and having to figure it out in the world. And whether or not you're doing that in college or you're doing that in life in general, for students to kind of be able to process things, figure out how they're going to handle things and take on the good moments and the bad moments. And I think high school is the perfect time to start genuinely working on that.
If you were an 8th grader right now, knowing what you know as a senior, what do you think 8th graders need to know and be able to do getting ready for the 9th grade?
Your homework. That is such a big thing. I would say like keeping up on work. I know it's really easy. I'm a big procrastinator, so I'll wait till one of my mantras for a while there was like, if it's due tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. But I've been getting better at that. So I think definitely just kind of instilling like actual timely work with students, because it would have been great to not have to worry about like, oh shoot, like I gotta turn this in or else I'm gonna like be failing this class.
I think a big thing, looking back at least when I was in 8th grade, is making sure that when I go into high school that I find things to be involved in. Because there is a click for everybody, but you have to find it, and it may not be there in your first month, but there's so many different club opportunities, sports opportunities, community things to be a part of. Like, find something to do that like genuinely keeps you like excited for like high school, because you don't always want to go to school, but you might want to go play tennis, or you might want to go play basketball, or you might want to go to that club thing after school, and that just keeps things more exciting.
I'd say a lot of students definitely have kind of lost passion because there's been a lot less enrollment in clubs and stuff. As even for the show we're doing right now, Wizard of Oz, there's a lot less people than we estimated there was gonna be. But I mean, we still got a good program and it'll keep moving hopefully, but there's definitely programs and things that students have just kind of lost like the drive to actually work for something and like be in a club and do something for a club that they really just like,
So for the Wizard of Oz, there's a set number of participants that you need to run the play, right?
Yeah.
And so do you think you have enough?
yes, we do. We usually, I think the max that we usually hit for musicals is like 50 people. And this one, we've got around like, there's like obviously the main characters of Wizard of Oz, but I think we've got around 25 to 30 ensemble members and characters who are like not named.
Mhm.
But I mean, we could have definitely used more, but we didn't have to cut anybody, so.
Mhm.
It's nice.
Gotcha. Okay. Any questions for our students regarding that first question? No?
What are the things you've got involved in 8th grade or 9th grade?
Like when I started school, like
Yeah.
I've done it all throughout high school. I have been a part of our associate student body leadership class, which has really become my like main thing that I look forward to. So I did that my freshman year. I attended a couple club meetings, but none of them really like were my favorite thing. And then I did volleyball my freshman year, but I didn't do it any other year. However, it did enable me to make new friends. Because you're transitioning from two school to one school, so there's more people to get to know, and it's good to know more people because your classes probably 95% of the people have new faces. So
You have ideas on what could be done to help encourage students to get involved in activities?
I think there's been like a lack of like advertising it. Like it gets like advertisement, they get made, but they don't get shared out. And also just like word of mouth, like being like, hey, you should come try this out, and like being willing to invite new people to give them that opportunity.
I will say my son is going to be a freshman next year. And we went to the orientation last week, and the video, you were in it, I did see you. And that was actually really great. And when we went home, my son, they listened to it. I looked up there and all those kids were watching you guys, and the things that you guys said, I think really resonated with them. So I think you guys definitely need to keep doing that. And I think that that's cool for them to see, things coming from actual students versus adults.
Yeah.
So, and you said a lot of the same things, which I think resonated with them. So.
Great, thank you. So the second question is, what should we start doing, keep doing, and stop doing? So Grace, you mentioned one-on-one meetings with each student
Yes.
as they're either preparing for their 13th year or life after high school or heading to, college or career. Then you said start advertising, Riley, and so sometimes it sounds like maybe we put something together, but it maybe doesn't get shared like it could.
Like kind of, I guess, lost in translation. Like we gotta follow through all the way. Like it starts working up the ladder, but we gotta get it all shared with us.
Anything else you can think of that we should start doing? And feel free, if there's something that you think we should stop doing, let us know.
I think it would be nice to see more like having like student interactions in the classroom, but like conversations, not just like, oh, work with your partner, like having kids genuinely just like talk to each other and like we don't have to like always be talking about math. Like, hey, how is your day going? Like, how are you? Like, how'd your game go last night? And kind of just encouraging people to like actually be willing to like build connections with others.
think kind of bouncing off that, one of the things that I think would be helpful to like start doing, and some teachers already are really good at it, so keep doing for those ones, but offering kind of more different types of learning opportunities, because everybody learns in a different way. And like I personally, I struggled a lot with math. It just never really stuck with me until I got a teacher who like sat down and took the time to explain it in a way that I could understand. And I've been passing math ever since then. So I'm a hands-on learner. And so languages like ASL, it's really something that I can like dive into, and that I can know that I'm doing a good job at it because I know it's the way that I learn. But I think there's definitely a lack of empathy from some staff members who really just don't understand that we do learn in different ways, and I can't always just sit down and do a 50-page packet and soak in all that material to know for the test.
How about stop?
I feel like I need to think about it a little.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's a great segue that we have a survey that we sent out, and Mr. Castle, I don't know if he's done it yet, but he can send out to all students. And it's our strategic plan survey, and so you can provide feedback like you are now in the survey.
It's just, I just can't think of something off the top of my head, like specific.
Right, yeah.
I would say standardized testing, but we can't stop that. I wish.
That's easier said than done.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, we'll make a note.
Okay, now fill us in on what's going on this spring. So winter sports are over. We have the musical getting ready to start. So just fill us in what's happening. This is your last, I don't know, is it 16 weeks of
Wow.
high school?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Crazy. I'll talk about the musical. I think last time I was here, it was my first time, and I was talking about how we were getting ready to prepare for auditions. And I wanted to be Dorothy because everybody wants to be Dorothy, but we auditioned. We're in our second week of rehearsals. I am Dorothy, so
Wow, good.
in the bag. This is my first lead role for a spring musical.
Yay.
Proud of myself, but yeah, we've got a good amount of kids, and we're having a lot of fun. We're working on our singing, and we did blocking for Munchkin Land today with Greg Gerson. I forget, that's very formal. And it's just been a really good time because we honestly got a lot more underclassmen than expected. So we have a lot of people that like are in smaller groups and are a little less known at the school, and they're a little shy, but they found a place where they can actually like make new friends and feel confident and try something new. And I think it's been really good for them. And a lot of our upperclassmen in drama, we're like, we love our underclassmen. They're like our best friends. And I think it's awesome to also see them grow. And I mean, I would love to come back and see all their musicals in place. I'll be in Utah, so we'll see about plane flight tickets. But I would obviously want to come back and see them and see how the program has grown without us.
And you remember when you were a freshman and a sophomore, and did you have someone who was kind of your mentor?
Yeah, I had a couple. My one of my best friends, PJ, she just graduated last year. She was like the grade right next to me, buddy. That was like my closest friend. And then there was definitely upperclassmen who I was really close with. And they foster a really nurturing environment that makes you feel included when you might think that you're not able to be included. And it just makes you feel really loved, and it's awesome.
When is the musical?
Okay, actually,
Oh, share that.
Our performance dates are the second and third weekends of May. So May 9th, 10th, and then 16th and 17th. And I'm not sure if it's on the 10th or 17th, but the night shows are usually 7 o'clock, and we usually have at least one matinee around there too.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so spring sports just started at Washougal, and I'm doing tennis. And we've actually gotten to play outside, which is really nice because when it's raining, we have to play in the wrestling room, and it's very claustrophobic. But I think that spring sports starting brought a little bit more life back to the school because you know, January to spring break is like a long stretch for most everybody. And we had winter sports, but that ended, it kind of, when that ended, it felt like there was nothing happening at the school. But we did just host a Renaissance rally, which recognizes like students for things more than just sports, like recognizing academics and attendance and like club involvement. So that went really well. It was super fun, and we had it was Rio themed, so we had like bright colors, lots of feathers, and that was super fun time. And now we're starting the process of planning for prom, so that will be also very exciting. Which is kind of crazy to think, like, get to spring break and then we'll get back and we'll have a month till prom and then a month till graduation.
That's great.
But I mean, I'm excited, like, no regrets. So pretty great.
I love it.
And when is prom?
May 3rd. Yes.
What's the theme?
So we actually just sent out for the seniors to vote, but we're either gonna do, okay, I need to think, it's gonna be either Wildflower Meadows, Rustic Romance, or Golden Hour, which is like a sunset vibe. Cause we're at the Victorian Vineyard somewhere in Vancouver, so it's like basically like a barn with like nature stuff. So we wanted to do a theme that would match that. So we're
Oh,
excited.
very cool.
Yeah,
Good spot.
stay away from romance.
As Mr. Cook would say,
Yeah.
leave room for God, guys.
Because I haven't really seen a lot of companies that way, and I think it would be
Which one?
a golden hour.
Yeah, especially with that setting, that look really cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
okay. Thank you so much. Any follow-up questions?
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having.
Yeah, I know you're busy. Looking forward to the musical and then watching that, Dorothy, and then, yeah, for tennis.
Yeah,
Seemed like there were a fair number of girls out.
we got a solid team.
Yeah.
We got 2 full teams, so.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
guys
taking
so
your
much.
time.
Thank you guys. All right, next up, we're gonna have our board and superintendent updates. Just started at the end, I'm so sorry. Just how it's gonna go, guys.
No, theme at my house is we've got parent teacher conferences coming at the end of the month, spring break coming at the beginning of the next month. Baseball and softball have kicked off and are kicking off depending upon the age of your kids, so. I've just been enjoying my 1 week break between the winter sports to the spring sports.
Love it. I miss it.
I'm happy to be back in Washougal. I was able to take our weather to Southern California for a couple of weeks and to Dallas and where it was our weather, and then it warmed up, but I'm happy to be back in town and around.
Good to see you back.
Yes.
Chuck, you got anything?
Nothing to update as far as activities, but I would like to underline what Riley was saying, because I thought it was important that the major things that kids should learn are to communicate well with others and to learn how to learn. And I don't know that we teach those things, but I sure hope the kids are learning them.
I don't really have any updates.
And I don't really have anything either. I'm just looking forward to spring break. I feel like I think Riley said that too, like this lull in between January to spring break. It just seems like it's cold and it lasts forever. So after spring break, things warm up. All right.
Yes. All right. Well, I've got a few items. You have a black and white copy. Okay. So Youth Arts Month is this month. And so we have a website dedicated to this. We have in our buildings leading up to conference week, which is at the end of this month, the last 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then spring break. So hopefully families, when they're in the buildings and they're meeting with their teachers, they see the art that our students have made. And so excited about that. There's a number of events happening in March, as well as the rest of the spring, as far as concerts, We heard about the musical, so that's happening in many of our buildings. And so that's also on our website. So thanks, Les, for publishing that. And so these couple pictures here, and Les will be collecting artifacts or pictures from what our students are making. So here's two that we're excited about. I know, it's so cute. Isn't
So
it?
cute.
Yes.
I'm like, is that?
Does every school have the Artsonia? Where you can go on and view your kids' artwork and like order things with their artwork, and some of the funding goes back to the school?
So I know CRGE used to do that,
Okay.
but I don't know if they do that anymore.
I was just curious, because like, it's an easy grandparents gift for me, and I like knowing the money goes back to Kate.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I don't have the answer to that, but we will find out.
I know it's been talked about.
Yeah.
And I know we did something similar.
So our unified basketball team got third place March 1st. So there's a picture of our team, which includes our two, it might be two coaches, so Lynn and Greg Giles. And then I think maybe a volunteer, maybe Misty, is that a volunteer? Is that person? So it's a family affair. So big fan of Unified. And so there's our team. And so they did so well in basketball. I think they have soccer coming up. Maybe that's right now. And so, yeah, just wonderful. And if you want to see them participate, you have soccer coming up. Yeah, we can let you know what their schedule is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just awesome. Great job.
The place was
Stay.
amazing.
Yeah, we got a big trophy.
That is so
Very
cool.
Yes. So on last Monday, we had Bites and Books. It was in the evening at all of our elementary schools. And if I could zero in on one picture in particular, this bottom right, and you can see it there, although it's black and white, that is Tracy reading to students at 8, I believe. And I have a bunch of those pictures, and they are so engaged in what she is reading. Like, she's just a pro. And I also was reading. I wasn't getting the same level of
She's been
engagement.
doing it for a while.
Maybe that's it. But yeah, so this event, which is, we have a sponsor through Read Northwest, and it's those individuals that own beaches, and now beaches, they've closed it, but they are continuing. It used to be called Read Across America.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and now it's Bites and Books, and this is all over the county. And just, this was the first time I got to participate. So there was waffles and they had some fruit snacks. And so there's like this little meal. And then every first grader got a book, and then, someone read to them. So I had an opportunity to read to CRG and then to Gauze. And I picked out a book about a giraffe that couldn't dance. His name was Gerald. And I love the book.
Relatable.
It's very relatable. Yes, yes, personalized. So, yeah, so this is just a great event, and we want to do it. I think this is probably the first time we've had it in all of our elementary schools. So we want to definitely do that next year.
Yeah.
And my experience was we didn't just give books to first graders if they had a sibling that was there. So I picked up, help a student who was in second grade pick out a book. So
they all
thanks to
got
our
to take a
boosters.
book
Yes,
home.
thanks to our boosters,
Very cool.
they all get to take home a book. And we had parents there, grandparents, siblings. The other day, Les and I were with the Jump to Guard boosters, and gosh, it was just so much. There were so many cars, and all the cars were there. It was late afternoon, early evening, and it was the JMS CCMS Knowledge Bowl we were hosting. The last time we were together, I shared information about the high school hosting. And so our JMS and CMS have teamed up together, and Mr. Rainey, that top left picture, said that this is the most students we've had, probably double or tripled our numbers. So we're really excited about Knowledge Bowl. This is the seasons for Knowledge Bowl. So they were, when we were there with the JMS boosters doing our strategic plan activity, then we were hosting for Knowledge Bowl. So I think I mentioned this to you, and you probably approved this donation. I can't remember when we originally presented it, but the Camas Washougal Rotarians donated funds for this McDonald oak tree ceiling picture that's in the Hathaway Library in a smaller space. And so we just completed, our team just completed the project. So that's what the students and staff, this is where Wendy has her staff meetings. And then when students go to the library and have tech lessons, this is where they go. And so that's It's based on research regarding it, maybe in like a dark space or a dark room where there isn't natural light. And so this just helps kind of maybe support students with being focused and maybe calmer. And so when I was there this morning, so Wendy sent me pictures and I had some time this morning and I went over there and asked a couple students what they thought, and they seemed to really appreciate it, and staff members were pretty excited about it. So
That looks cool.
yeah, so you get a chance to swing by and check it out. It was a nice donation for us. And Rotary didn't do this for like all schools or all districts in the county. They chose Washougal and we chose Hathaway. And so maybe this will lead to more opportunities like this, but so just appreciate their donation.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay, so today we finalized the bond refinancing. And so I can share more information with you in the near future. So it wrapped up early this afternoon. We started pretty early this morning as the market, opens up pretty early here in the West Coast. And so, yeah, just some details for you. I would consider it successful. We had established a minimum, right? And if we weren't able to meet that minimum, we weren't going to do it, right? And so having a meeting yesterday afternoon with the team and just understanding what's going on in the country, we were a little nervous about the volatility and what was going to happen. I asked a question about like what kind of events could happen between right now. It's about 2 or 3 in the afternoon and tomorrow morning. And I had a bunch of things in my head, and then the person said, well, he suggested a couple others I wasn't even thinking about. And so, yeah, I don't know if I slept that well last night, thinking about what's going to happen. And always knowing that we didn't have to finalize, right? And not going through this process before. So we had really an amazing team. I appreciated Shalise throughout this process. And then those that we were working with that you met a couple of board meetings ago. So they were just phenomenal. And very confident in what they were doing. I had no questions. Actually, if I did have questions, they answered them. So we were pretty excited. The old rate was 4.87. The new rate is 3.10. The benefit over the 10 years is about $2 million. And so, that when you think about the denominator in 2 million over 10 years, that each taxpayer it's not going to be a lot of money, but the idea is it's going to be some money that doesn't go to the interest, right?
Yeah.
And so because of this, then our taxpayers are going to have that. This is not a savings for the school district. This is a savings for our taxpayers. So we're definitely excited about that. Thank you for your support in this process. We have, potentially additional savings in 2016, if that's something we want to do. We had already talked a little bit about our Moody's rating. And so when we had a meeting with Moody's, their representative, and talked about the work that we have done since 2022, 23, they see what we're doing, and they, that our rating will improve when our fund balance improves, right? It's just, that's basically
How it works.
that's it. So understanding that,
Yeah.
and I know that we're working on that, and there's some complexities to that. It's just that is important as far as that rating and why that rating is important, so we can get the best rates. Yeah, and so there's long-term savings with that. So again, just thank you to our community. And this is, I think, one way of us showing that we are being responsible and good stewards of our finances. And you may have additional questions. I would be sharing with some more information with you in the near future. So yeah, I guess that's it. Wow, fantastic. So if there are any further questions, I think we're ready to get into the agenda a little further.
All right, what do we have next? We have our education support for professionals appreciation.
Yes, so this week is our ESPs, education support professionals, also known as our classified staff. And so we have part of the leadership team is here. So they're going to come up. We have some little gifts for them that we want to give you before you go. Unless you're planning to stay for the entire meeting, that's completely up to you. So thank you for being here. So when we think about our education support professionals, I usually start with like transportation. So the first individuals that our students see are our bus drivers. So our bus drivers, we have a mechanic helper, we have dispatch. And so that's our transportation department. And then think about in our buildings, we have secretaries and our custodians and our culinary staff and our paraeducators. And we also have administrative assistants and techs, registrar, a variety of roles that we have. And these are individuals that are working closely with students, closely with staff, supporting students and staff throughout the day. Times when they're outside when it's freezing and it's windy, so our recess staff, and so, or it's really hot. So, but again, they work closely with our students, they work closely with our staff. We appreciate all that they do. This week, one of some things we're doing is I know that individual buildings and department leads are providing, in some cases, like snacks that go around. One of the things that we are doing is we have a shout out form that this Sandra Doza, who was previous president for several years and has been in the district for multiple decades as a paraeducator, but Canyon, this was her original idea. So we're continuing with this, and the idea of they get a shout out from someone who recognizes the good work they're doing. And so that started on, I think you launched it on Thursday or Friday. And so I just know, and I think I've shared this before, when I do this, and then what happens is that individual will get that, then we post it on a web page. PSC has a web page. It seems like most of the time there's this kind of reciprocal appreciation. And so they get an email, and then usually like there's a reply, which just, isn't necessary, but it just, they appreciate being recognized. We talked in our leadership meeting yesterday, all of our building leaders, that meeting that Tracy facilitated. We talked about like, what do we notice? And, like Riley was talking about, and the things that I think we talked a little bit about soft skills and hard skills, and those soft skills, like what do we notice is, do they positive, individuals positive, clearly hardworking, collaborative, calm. And most of our classifieds, these positions, is so important to remain calm because they're working with students. And as soon as we get escalated, our students typically get escalated. So these are things that I notice: calm, teamwork, willing to do whatever is needed to get the job done, diligent in completing the task. So these are the things we talked about that we notice that we appreciate from our staff. So this week is dedicated to them. Thank you for all you do in supporting our student staff in this community. And also typically, I think our staff that are part of that are ESPs are community members. That they have children in the system or grandchildren in the system, or sometimes they have siblings because they've graduated and they're not exactly sure what they're doing, and so they need a job. I was talking to one today who we were at CRG, and so I was her principal, and she's now working for us, and she just kept saying, I feel like I'm in high school again because of you. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about that. Okay, get over it. So it's really great as a former principal and teacher to see our students coming back and wanting to be educators. All right. So Misty Young, will you come on up here, please? So Misty is our president, and Ellen is not here, but can we get this to Ellen? Yes. And then Kathy Sloop. And Kathy is right now our legislative, PSC legislative rep. She's been, thank you, a variety of positions. Penny, can you come on up? And Madonna? Yeah. Can we get a picture?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Can we get a picture? Is that a?
Yeah. On my
Picture, and this tie, I don't know if you can tell this tie. So we had our day on the hill.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they gave me this tie while we were up there. So Kathy and Penny and Sandra were there with us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We were kind of crossing paths. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
I was
gonna see
telling
this.
them-
Yeah,
Not in that picture. Wait, cute, Laura. Okay.
Can I get this one? Okay.
Now I gotta check out the time. Let me see this time.
Yay.
Oh, that's it.
And I think you delivered cakes, right? This week on Monday, you delivered like really large cakes to every building, every program. Yeah. So district office received this big giant cake. And we don't have a lot of
I didn't
PSC
get
members.
invited to that.
So, oh, wow, it was such an exciting time to see that. And Sarah gave her blessing so we can have one.
So you're saying there's snacks after the meeting?
Well,
I think
this
the
one,
cake is gone.
they're so giving and so everyone can share. Yes, if you want to. Yeah, someone text Sarah and said it's okay. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got a capital projects update.
Yes, all right, let me stop sharing this. So as they are getting set up, so yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Someone asked, I think maybe you'd share, like, what's going on with our capital projects? What a great time to share, give you some progress. So this is 3/4 of our team. Jessica Beener, who's a part of the team, was unable to make it. So Les is working closely with Jessica, and Adam Cormack and Dan Bodell are with RNC. And so what they're going to do is
Just put that together.
they are going to share with you an update. And so I have the privilege to work with them. I think our meetings are once a week. It's just kind of a recap. So there's a variety of meetings happening. So the meeting that I'm a part of is we're like at a 25,000 foot level. And then Adam and Dan meet with Jessica and have these very much more technical conversations that wouldn't be good for me. And they would be good for them if I was a part of that. So, but they just going over the like specific details. So really appreciate the work they're doing. They've got a presentation for you. Feel free to ask any questions you have throughout the process.
Okay, so as a reminder, RNC Management is the group that we chose back in, I think, December to do construction management support to oversee the work that's being funded by the district's capital levy. These two. So
yeah, Adam Cormack, RNC management principal, partner at RNC. Super grateful and thankful to be here again. A few folks remember back in 2015, we were hired to come in and manage your previous construction loans. So it's super great to be back. We're super grateful and thankful for the opportunity. So Adam Cormack, RNC management.
Dan Bodell, senior project manager, A1 High School, class of 78, Wizard of Oz, Scarecrow.
Come on. Who knew?
Can't call it that.
Shoot. I don't.
yeah.
Dan, thank you. You're sharing a little bit.
I was transported back. Decades.
We do a lot of K-12 education in Southwest Washington and Oregon, but we really prioritize Southwest Washington. So we're super great.
Actually, the bond refinancing is the work that was paying for the projects that they were here the last time. So as a reminder for those that find 2023 to have been a really long time ago, in April of that year, our voters approved the capital project levy. It was a 3-year levy. In the first year of the levy, it continued the funding from the previous year, which is about $950,000 for technology. That was our technology levy continuation. And in order not to have people's taxes have a spike, we pushed off a year the start of the money for capital projects that we're talking about. And so in tax year 2025, which just started on January 1st, we're collecting a little bit more resource in the capital project fund that is timed so that it aligned with a drop in the bond payments. And it's going to finance a set of projects. And so it's the second year and the third year, the capital projects levy will collect $3 million and then about $3.5 million, which are financing this set of projects.
Sure. So back in November, when we got brought on board, we hit the ground running really hard on developing budgets, schedules based on the information that we had, kind of developing soft costs and hard costs and good timelines of how we were. And at the time, there was kind of 6 major projects. And over the last little bit, we've kind of consolidated that. So we're into kind of four major projects. The boiler replacement, HVAC, we combine those in one. And then the security, there was an ADA component, and then there was some security access controls. We kind of looked at it through the lens of how would be the most efficient, and so we consolidated those into a project. We're out to, and I'll hit on this a little bit more, we're out to bid on that, but we're able to just do one bid package to bring in a contractor. And then the roof replacement at the high school, and then some flooring replacement at Gauze and Hathaway. So those are kind of, there are 6 projects that we kind of for just from the procurement. So Dan's going to hit on the HVAC controls and the HVAC.
So again, they're at the high school, the equipment that makes the hot is on its, has reached its end of life, as well as the thermostats, as well as the brains to manage air conditioning, as well as the boiler. So they're close cousins, but they are kind of different, and so we're pursuing both of those in parallel. The control system is out for bid now, well, as of tomorrow, but it's out for bid, and we'll be getting that pricing. The boiler system, they're studying an option just for a little bit, for a little while, and that helps out in the long term. So those are 2 separate things that work together that we're expecting to get done this summer.
The alternative to that heat pump is just a gas-fired boiler or a oil or.
Yeah, it's like looking at, because right now it's a gas-fired boiler.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this is an option of some boilers with a heat pump on the side, or big picture, is there some reason to use all electric as a heat pump?
Mhm.
It's different, but it's worth taking some time thinking long term. See if it's the right thing to do, and we should have that information into the team by next week as far as which direction we're going to go. And once that the senior people in the district make that decision, then we'll start drafting the design. And again, our biggest enemy is the calendar, and so we got to get this going.
This procurement times, et cetera, so.
So are you guys working the designs yourselves, or how does that work?
We went through a procurement process to bring in professional services, mechanical engineers, commissioning agents, envelope consultants to come in and design. So we're not designers. We're called a lot of different things, project managers, owners, reps, construction managers, but we're not the designers. So we facilitate the process, and the goal is to make sure that at the end of the day, the district gets the best quality at the best price, and everything in between. And so that's what we went from it being a boiler design. If there's currently 3, like Dan said, trying to maybe reduce that to 2, keep it efficient. And then as we got a little, we thought, or the team, like the management team that we call it, it's kind of sad, thought we should study some more options just because you only get one time to do it. Right? So we're taking a little extra time to go through that due diligence. We'll meet with that team and get our direction.
What is the life cycle on that kind of a installation? Was 20 years?
Yeah, 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, depends on what equipment you're
Right.
talking about. Some boilers can, I mean, some of the stuff can last up to 50 years.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, that's some of the stuff that we're doing. We've asked our designers to bring to the table some pros and cons from the different systems, and then also what are some costs, so we can make an informed decision with the team and get moving forward.
Right, and it's not just the upfront costs that we're looking at, we're
Yes.
also looking at the operating
Right.
costs of the different things. That's one of the reasons that the heat pump might be more efficient in certain temperature ranges than the gas boiler may be, and so they're trying to model that over the course of a year and then over a number of years to see whether it's something that might be more cost effective for the district down there.
So part of that, right? Part of that due diligence they do, let's just say, they'll bring a life cycle cost to it, so we can kind of see the pros and cons of the back. So our job is to keep pushing that forward. We want to, I mean, we want to get the right product and the right product, but we also have a timeline that we get. So I think that the team that we're meeting, we meet bi-weekly with the management team, and like Aaron said, we're meeting on a weekly basis to make sure we're, pushing things.
On it,
forward.
yeah.
So,
Great.
and again, if there's any stuff that pops up, just interrupt us and we can hit it. And if we don't have the answer today, we'll track it down, we'll follow up and get it for you. So, yes, projects 3 and 4, the security systems and ADA, I kind of hit on this before. Those were kind of separated, and we had a package that was previously done in the high school and gauze that was already designed, and we as a team made a decision. We would just put pause on that for a few. We would design the other schools up at Cape and Canyon. And so we have done that. We work with NIS. NIS is the design team. They work with the district a lot, understand the standards. We've had a handful of page turns to make sure everything we captured. And tomorrow we're out on the street to bid that. Whatever the board says, April 8th is our current bid date. So we're going to get out and call folks to make sure they're aware of it. It will get advertised through the public process, but we're going to make sure we have people show up on the bid day. So,
When you select a bidder, do you like go with like the least cost, or do you kind of try and evaluate like,
in this-
sometimes you get what you pay for, so like. how do
Yeah,
you-
in this process, it is a hard bid project. It is a public bid, so we will go with the lowest, become the lowest responsible bidder. And so that lowest responsible, we put things in the specification, we can drawings and documents to make sure that they're qualified, that they can bid. But at the end of the day, in the state of Washington, you can't do a lot of pre-qualifications, so there's other options to do that. But I hope I answer your question. We're going through a hard bid project. We're making sure the front end documents have some qualifications in there so that we don't, and we're calling the folks that we work with and we have good working experience just to make sure that, we don't, the more bidders that you get that are qualified, typically the price goes down. They sharpen the pencil a little bit more. So it's in our best stage. We're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're having to show up on the day. I'm trying to get them through fast, so we got a better question. And then project number 5, the roof, the high school, Washougal High School roof. So we have a date. We've gone through a lot of iterations and options, and what our job and what our goal is to make sure on bid day that we're successful, that we have that we're within budget, and then we have some options that we can make. And so we're working with PRC, professional roof consultants. They're an envelope consultant that we selected through an RFQ process to help us on that design. Again, providing the district and us with studies on pros and cons, costs, et cetera, et cetera. So we set that up. We're planning to go out to bid early April and end of April, have those bids due. There is some procurement challenges in there on some of the different materials, so we've specified those accordingly. So we are going to have, I don't want to get into the weeds, but we're going to put in case some alternates so that on bid day we can make some choices. We want to get the most bang for our buck. And so we'll have 2 or 3 different alternates that, again, we'll sit down with the core team and the board and see, so we can make some more informed decisions. So, but in general, things are going really good there. We have a really good game plan moving forward, and it's our job on a weekly basis to make sure PRC has everything they need so that they can make informed decisions. And Jessica, Les, Aaron, everything, the whole team has just been fantastic on getting us the information that we need so that we can push on and move forward. So
I think one of the things we were going to talk about with this is that in looking at this, it's unlikely that the district can do metal for the entire roof. And I think we were broadcasting that even a couple of years ago, that the goal was to do as much of it as possible. The cost escalation that's happened since February of 2023 is significant. The discussion around tariffs is not helping. And it is anticipated to push the costs up more. And so part of the work in developing these alternates is to prioritize the areas of the high school roof that see the most impact from the weather and the wind. The maintenance guides have spent a significant amount of time patching our roof. They're very familiar with where the trouble spots were. They worked with Jessica and PRC, consulting group to identify the areas that we're most concerned about, that we would most like to see in metal. And those alternates will target those areas. We'll do as many of them as we can in that.
Is PRC, is that the group that came in like a few years ago and gave us that big presentation? With
No,
like
that
the
was,
big,
I think, Garland.
oh, okay.
Professional risk consultants, they're a consultant,
Okay.
that's what they do, they're envelopes, so they do anything on the exterior, whether it's siding, roofing, brick, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
The goal is to design it and have it so that it doesn't leak. So they have techniques and details, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, and then the other thing I think on this is that there's still a hedge built into this, whether, because the roof is so large. It is possible that we won't be able to schedule the entire project to fit during the summer of 2025.
Yeah.
And so this project might be partially done this summer and then partially done next summer.
But would you pay, like, would it be, you would award a contract for both upfront, or would you have
I
to?
think that's our goal.
Yeah, so what we're going to, we're gonna go out to bid in early April, and between now and then, we're either gonna make that decision, or we're gonna go out to bid and ask the bidders of, can we do this? Or what's the likeliness we can? Because what we don't want to do is, and so between now and the first bid, we'll either have that specified in the documents, or we might even go out to bid if it doesn't happen. We're starting to make some phone calls to roofing contractors, and it's a little, right now, we don't know how much metal we're gonna do or how much comp we're gonna do, and so it's hard to say. But I think, we want to do our due diligence. Our preference is to do it in one summer, but we do a lot of this work. We do new construction, we do a lot of renovation type work as well, and that's a lot of work to get done in a short period of time. And I know we've also talked about some potential options of maybe starting a little earlier where it's not as impactful on students, and finishing a little later and doing those at a time where we start in late May, capture some time there, and then we'll go into September. So that's stuff that we will, over the next 30 days, develop and get some good feedback from not only the subcontractors out there, but the PRCs of the world. And then that management team will make a really good informed decision based on that. We can specify in the drawings and documents accordingly. So thanks for hitting on that, because I skipped over that. And then any other questions on the high school road?
I don't know how to ask the question, but for a project like that goes over a 2-year period.
Yeah.
For this particular 2-year period where there's so much volatility in construction, products, materials, labor, everything else, how is that written into the contract? Is there insurance that if the price of metal goes up and they didn't get it in time?
We would put in the documents. We could do it either way. We could do it as 2 separate contracts. I think our preference, because you've got warrant, not only like cost escalation, but warranty, and you don't want fingers pointing, et cetera.
Right.
And so we could do it multiple ways. I think what we would potentially, an option would be is we would put it in there, and if we decide that we can't get all this work done, we might buy it this year. And then we phase it, just like what we do, like when we built Jemtigard, we bid that project out a year and a half before we actually did that roof, but they would take those escalation typical into
their bidding.
Into the bidding. So then on that, you would know on bid day, you're getting one contractor, and it might be phase 1 for summer 2025, and then phase 2, summer 2026, but you don't have multiple contractors. The one other challenge we're doing metal and comp is they're 2 separate contracts.
Right.
Comp folks don't do metal, and metal don't really do comp. So there's going to be a prime, and that's kind of that. It probably be a prime will do the metal, vice versa.
Yeah.
So,
And is there a value engineering process that goes in depending on how the bids come in, or?
yeah. So we do value engineering all the way through design, kind of looking at those items. But we're setting up the bid alternates so that we'll be able to make some some informed decisions on. This is base bid, this is what we've got to do, and it's got a certain amount of metal and all the rest is comp. And then we've got a little portion for option A or alternate 1 and alternate 2. So on bid day, we should be on budget or under budget, but we can make some informed decisions on it.
In the roundest of numbers. Base bid is about a fourth this amount. And then an alternate, so maybe about a third of it is met. And then the last one, if the numbers are good, perhaps half of it is better than half is the other.
That's
So,
kind of the
yeah,
range you're
in the
looking
very
at, yeah.
beginning, it just depends on how much we can afford.
Right.
Good question, thank you. And then, last but not least, the flooring at Gauze and Hathaway, so, the management team and the team here, we went through an exercise to kind of do there's a KCDA process that's a state contract, it's a cooperative agreement. And then there's also the hard bid process, and so we did an exercise, a cost exercise comparison in that to kind of land on where our recommendation was, and we're planning to bring that recommendation on the 25th to go through the KCDA process. The pros to that, the main pro is we can kind of scale that up and scale that down, whatever we need to do. Based on some of these other bids that come in, we might have a little bit more funds available to do a little bit more or a little bit less. And so that process gives us a lot of flexibility, but it also still allows us to know that we're getting a competitively bid product. So the priorities are that we currently have is the walk-off mats at Gauze and Hathaway. So all the exterior doors, getting those walk-off mats replaced, and then the corridors replaced. And then depending on, we're getting some unit costs for just each classroom, and then we can work with the management team and identify which was the next layer of priorities. So right now we're gathering, we're kind of finalizing some recommendations. We're working with Jessica and her team to identify kind of a short list of materials and colors, and then they'll take that short list, go down and meet with the staff and get some direction from that. So we feel really good on procurement timelines, getting that approved on the March 23rd or 25th board meeting, have enough time to procure those materials, and we're planning that we're confident that we'll get that done over summer. And if we have some other funds and we are a little bit smarter and know a little bit more information come summer, we can scale it up a little bit more if that's the direction.
So I guess just maybe more of a process question is, so that requires board approval. Do all these other bids
Yeah,
require
yeah.
board approval? Okay,
They
so
do.
eventually we'll go all across.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we've identified that on our schedule. We can share that with you, but we've already earmarked, kind of developed the bid schedule based on bid for board meetings. Obviously, we'll go out to bid, we'll do our due diligence, we'll review that, we'll give a recommendation and then an intent to award to that contractor. And, we have a really good relationship with these folks. A lot of those folks are going to get to work on submittals and all the stuff that they need. And then the board, obviously, we don't sign a contract until the board approves that, but they acknowledge that there might be a couple of weeks where they can get in front of some of that stuff. So, but yes, we'll have to bring all those to the board. We're trying to time them so that it works with all the standard board meetings, but there might be some
Special meetings that we need. Yeah.
Right, like the one earlier, this month, we might have to do some special meetings, so that we're not postponing the block
Right.
too long.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
And we have those dates, and if I haven't shared them, I can share them. We can get those out just so it's on your guys's.
Yeah, great.
Any sort of rough idea what the flooring is probably gonna run us?
Like in the $150,000 range.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
So
all
probably
the
the smallest.
walk-off mats, all the
Yes.
corridors, and some other common areas. So,
Thank you.
yep. And we looked through the lens more of a cost per square foot to make sure what we would anticipate on bid day is what the actual KCBA agreement aligned with. And it's right there, not actually less on some of these areas. And that's not always that case, but in this scenario, it was. So.
And we'll get some feedback from the buildings now, so both the custodians as well as the school leadership on like which priority areas beyond the common areas are the ones that are most in need, and then also on the feedback around things like the color and so that we're not just picking something out of my catalog. So when we're getting a sample, it's pretty special for them to have, go sit down next to the paint color and the furniture and see if it looks okay. Alrighty, so actually your question is one that was on the next slide. So as we receive those bids, so each of those kind of 4 large projects are kind of moving independently, but we'll be bringing those to the board for approval. So you'll see those in the board packets, typically with that recommendation page. The high school roof is the largest one, but all of them are in that public works thing where they're large enough that it requires your approval. We're expecting the construction, the vast majority of it hopefully will be this summer. There might be pieces, and we kind of talked about that along the way, that extend into 2026. And then one thing we wanted to highlight is that following the feedback we received from the community, they are still continuing to seek other funding sources for this. Back in December, we brought the Department of Commerce grant for the HVAC controls at Keep in Canton. That was something that was supposed to be funded by the levy, and it kind of freed up some resource, which has been good because with the escalation in the cost, we really needed that breathing room. We also received that grant for the ADA doors in Dawson Hathaway. And again, that freed up some capacity to be able to do and complete more of the work we talked about with the community. And we're still chasing other funding resources that could tackle some of these projects or other projects that can be considered.
So all these projects are being funded with the levy funds we collected in 2025.
Plus these 2
plus grants.
So it'll be 2025 and 2026. So that tax year, there's 2 years of tax revenue. The first half of it, or roughly half of it, comes in this year, and then the second half comes in next year.
But we're going out to bid for all of these now.
Yeah.
So
we have some liquidity in the capital project fund that we're using. So there are some monies that are there and available to fund projects like this, like that fund that's there for the high school tour. And some other monies that have been collecting. And we can use those resources to do these types of projects and then pay them back when we get the tax proceeds next calendar.
Any other questions?
I'm so excited to get these started.
Yeah. Yes.
The doors are huge. What? The security door is a cape right now. You got a key on all the side doors.
Oh, ADA too. That's
Yeah.
2001 that law passed,
Yeah,
right?
the EDA doors are typically at the main entrances.
Right.
That's the priority. So for most of that, people who need accessibility are coming.
And we'll work with Aaron and class on future updates, us coming at helpful, not helpful. We'll work with the team to make ourselves available. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thanks, Les.
All right. Next up, we have our financial health update.
Yes. All right. So I gave you a 1-pager. So you should have this along with your presentation, and then the presentation, the slide is up there. And this 1-pager is from 2017-18 to 23-24. And so this was published February, I think 19th is when I found it. I need some assistance from TG Kelly's assistant to find it. Was very excited about the results. And so just want to talk a little bit about it, see if you have any questions. As I had shared a communication to you, Shalise had predicted what our score, she felt like our score was going to be based on looking at the formula, how it was weighted. Because we have that information in October, November, this just is not published until February. So I just kind of, I think the significance of the first data point that I've shared is in 23-24, our expenditures to revenue, 98.91% compared to the previous year, which was 105.46%. So we overspent, right? So we got into the fund balance in 22-23. And if you look at this, this sheet, you see that not only happened in 22-23, but it also happened in 21-22 and 20-21. And so, you know, during those times, we know we were experiencing in 22-23, it was 105.46%. And then we received a score, if we're just talking about this metric that is used, a score of 1, which we hadn't had a score of 1 in those 9 years or however many years there is there. And then this last year, we had a score of 4. So there is the significant area that we improved, a notable progress, and that's 35% of this score. So, you know, we ended up with a score of 2.6 compared to 1.55 with a 1.75 threshold for the financial warning label. Interesting that Tracy and I, and I'm sure probably a few other police as well, were on a call with our state superintendent, and he referenced this particular data point and that spreadsheet and shared that anyone that was in the financial warning category or label was going to receive a communication. And as we shared last year, to my knowledge, we didn't receive a communication. We used that information throughout the spring. So you have access to the larger sheet. You have this one pager really tells the story. We are appreciative of the progress we made. I think that the moves that we made, you know, last year in the I would say late winter, we made some reductions across the system, and even reducing some hours of staff. I think that helped. I think that we are on the right path right now with decisions, but we need to continue to stay focused on this conservative approach. I think what's happening around us globally, and we talked about the projects and our concern for what's going to happen with those things that we need to purchase, those expenditures and the cost of those. So we have to continue to be very conservative in and we're thinking as our planning goes, we're projecting what our enrollment's going to be. We're looking at our staffing. And just as we have neighboring school districts that are going through a similar process that we went through last spring, we're also going to need to make some reductions. And so our budget plan that we started to discuss, you know, several months ago, we are on track right now to have those decisions. We're working with our building teams. We're working with our district leadership. We're in communication with our partners. And so they will be notified when we finalize those decisions. But back to just our partners in recognizing PSE today and our classified staff, like we are because our partners, our labor partners, worked with us. They recognized the situation we were in. So across the board, they understood it, and when we asked to work together on this, they were there for us. So we appreciate that. And we're going to continue to, you know, follow a similar practice. We need to. So anyway, I'm thrilled with where we are right now, but we still need to stay diligent with our plan.
But I want to acknowledge and thank our partners also for cooperating with the administration and helping to solve the problem.
Yes.
Seeing the 15 days reserve, that's still a little tight, particularly with uncertainty with federal funding coming in.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And it's last year.
Right. Thank you. You know, and we're working a quick conversation about that. And yes, so what's going on with that particular part of this number? And so I looked at across the state and what's happening with that particular days cash on hand. And it is declining over the last 4 years. It is. It's just ours declined much greater, you know, in 21, 22 and 22, 23, and actually greater than the average to 23, 24. So hopefully we're going to, you know, we won't see these results that are going to be published until next February. We'll be able to figure out where we're going to end up. I think this is an important metric to continue to focus on. And so, you know, it also came up again. I think it's maybe I just wasn't a part of those meetings last year at this time, and maybe our state superintendent did mention it, but it is very relevant now with what's happening in the state of Washington.
Yeah.
And when we get into a legislative update, and they know, right? Our legislators know what our school districts are experiencing right now.
Speaking of funding,
Yes.
how much, if any, if we know, of our expected funding this year could potentially be a risk. And I ask the question because I have folks that have been allocated funds in other areas and they're not getting them.
Right, so yeah, so what we know right now, based on this afternoon's meeting with our state superintendent. And what he thinks is gonna happen is our title funds are going to be protected. This is what he believes. Now, I don't know if he was talking about 25, 26. I think he was talking currently, our title funds are probably more secure than other grants that we have. So we have some other grants like Unite is funded through the DFC and the Stop Act grant. So those funds we are more concerned about than our title funds. Based on the information we heard today, I don't know, Shalice and Tracy, if you want to add to what we heard.
Well, there was a question that in regard to next year, so 25, 26, they asked about the title fund thing. This, I mean, I don't know that you could say they're secure, but we felt like there were a lot of other components to those funds that would keep them in a more secure position. Whereas there was other extenuating funding, like he was very specific, like, don't count on that.
When I took
Federal
from it, is he was talking about different categories, and he kept saying they aren't talking about it. So he was saying your title funds and your federal funds, that they aren't, that's not really in the conversation. So he said you could think about a mini haircut is what he called it, but he didn't think it was going to be a drastic change. He said that he would be nervous about our federal food service fund.
Right.
Well, today that came out. Yeah.
Yes.
Extremely cautious about our funds that aren't coming through OCI, which is our DSD and our STOP grant.
And how much is that annually? Roughly.
Both DSD and STOP together is probably about 170 a year.
And how about the federal food, the USDA funds? 300,000.
And overall federal funds,
5.5.
5.5%, which was 2.7 million. And what I think I might have shared this with you is a helpful graphic of the state of Washington and be able to look at each school district and what their federal funds are that they're in. And he talked about today, particular places, Northeast Washington, where they're going to be hit much harder than Southwest Washington. And so the makeup of your student population in your community. So anyway, I'll share that. If I didn't share, I will make sure I share it with you.
Another question for you, Shalice. February is our dip month. Do you have an estimate of how many days on hand we had this February?
I currently
Okay,
still closing.
okay.
But.
2
we talked
weeks.
about- Yeah, in 2 weeks.
That's fine. Just curious. Yeah, that's fine.
But
Down further. Good.
Go lower, but nowhere near where it was.
And as soon as we have that complete, we can share that
Yeah.
with you. That might be a weekly update.
I mean, I still think that the difference between 15 days and 0 is highly significant. And making payroll
Yes.
is essential. Thank you.
Any other questions about the financial health store? No, go ahead.
Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that. Great. We have our legislative update next.
Right. So I apologize for all the text. There's a lot of information here. I felt like I didn't know how to really get it condensed down any further. So when you, I think, believe you get the WASA TWIO. I share with you just kind of a summary of the TWIO. So we look at where our information is coming from. It's from WASDA, it's from WASA. And so this was also reiterated what we're going to share by our state superintendent. This is just a reminder of our priorities. So what we identified is fix this prototypical staffing model. You know, we definitely are overspending. There's this huge gap in special education. And then just due to the inflationary crunch that we're experiencing, MSOCs, if we get some assistance. So, you know, we were optimistic 51 days ago. And so as we started and we're continuing to advocate, and as the TWIO was identifying is what you're hearing, when it's in the news, or if you go to just a record from on the site, you see that those bills that we have bills still remaining that are focused on MSOCs and transportation and special education. It's just the MSOCs one, the number keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so we aren't as optimistic as we were, I'd say, 50 days ago. So this next slide is just in detail what seems to be happening. So we're more than halfway through in this session. I don't know if you've heard, I've heard that it might go a little bit longer. It might go into May. That is certainly something that's happened before. The two major funding priorities, special education and MSOCs, are still our bills. We're watching those. MSOCs, again, those are like our utilities and insurance and classroom supplies, other materials that just as we've just been talking about inflation and probably more impacting the price of these goods that we need. Some of the things, transportation doesn't look that great right now. Like it looks like the transportation bills that were there aren't any longer, and that the funds are not so much. And again, we know we've talked about we've made adjustments with transportation that's helped us. Transitional kindergarten, so TTK. Interesting that, as we're tracking that, and we shared with you as soon as we found out in September what our situation was, it seems like today's news is we're going to get fully funded in March. April will be partial, but very much optimistic about fully funding. But it's going to be lean as far as these funds, so we may not realize it till August. But it looks like that's favorable for our current TK programs, and then possibly next year that there's going to be definitely a limit on how many students. We're hoping that it'll be based off of 23-24, where we have 4 sections. Right now, when we look at forecasting,
425.
Yeah, this year. Yeah, this year. We're hoping it's this year where we have 4 sections. And right now, when we're looking at next year, we're not thinking we're going to have 4 sections based on what the current funding looks like. So again, today was helpful. We're going to keep looking at Connor's starting to meet with our families who have signed up for the 25-26 school year. And so hopefully we'll get more families interested. So anyway, we will update you as we go, as far as that goes. We're going to continue to advocate for our priorities, which includes looking at this whole system and how the program funding model is set up. I haven't heard too much about that, so I'm not sure that that's a high priority at the legislative level. So just this is really what we heard today from our state superintendent and part of his team. I just shared with you TTK, title and special education grants, what Shalise and Tracy were just saying, that it's optimistic as far as that goes, or somewhat optimistic, if that can be quantifiable as far as title. We are concerned about other grants. We just decided or shared with you. Now, the concern is when those individuals are under contract, right? And so we have our STOP grant and the DFC grant. We don't have a lot of staff supporting that their compensation is connected to that grant, but we have a few, and they're valuable members of our team. And so as we and I know that they're tracking what's happening, and we'll be in communication with them if that ends up being the case, and then we have decisions to make. Then special education, MSOCs, transportation, just a little more information about that, and just a little summary of how it's impacting us. We've really just got over it. That we again, because of the adjustments we've made, we're in better shape. But food service, we don't really have an answer if that right now was to happen. So we've got that's what we're tracking that, and then the external grants, and continuing to look for grants, even though we know that might not be something we can depend on. If we were able to get a grant that maybe isn't federally funded, that'll help us. Any questions about?
Has there been any further thought or discussion on expanding TK through some kind of tuition
Yeah.
program
Oh,
or?
for us?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So we actually have been looking at a community ed preschool.
Yeah,
And if we went with a full day or a half day, right now, what we are looking at would be an all day. So it looks very similar to TK.
Mhm.
So those students are are at school about that same amount of time. And then it looks like what community ed preschool looked like with 2 staff members. So the students are there all day. I think we're projecting it'd be around $800 a month for those families. Then if they were part-time students, so maybe a half day, then it'd be $600. And so we do have a survey out, some interest. And, ultimately, I think it'd be great if we could offer 2 community preschools, one in town and one up at Cape Horn Sky. I don't know that that's gonna happen, but that'd be ideal.
Where did the survey go out to? Because I haven't seen anything. On
Went out to the families.
Like just
and
the
then we-
TK families or?
No, so how did we,
So within one of the weekly sections.
so Facebook?
Because I think all I saw was TK. I thought, the next could totally be my oversight.
So it was PK, community ed preschool.
Dual language.
Preschool and the dual language program were
Okay.
all in one. Group.
Is that still open, that survey, so that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great if we could get that like out to,
Okay, yeah, and we've actually been talking about,
not just our families. but
right, so yeah, so some of the challenges of making these decisions. And then quickly getting it out because we are now in March and then April, the
Planning.
decisions are happening right now,
Right.
if not sooner, they were happening earlier.
Mhm.
So definitely we know we need to get that out. So we are, I think, confident in that we have a full day and a half day in mind. We have the survey, we know we could look at how we can get that out further or remind families that maybe weren't aware of it. You think I can't remember, was it a part of the connections that was mailed out? Is it?
January.
Yeah.
26th.
Yeah.
in terms of the community TK, there may be families. The old bugaboo for me, families live in Washougal, but their kids are in the Camas district.
Mhm.
Camas has some pretty severe budget issues. There may be a broader pool than just our current families.
And so then would the TK as we know it now, would we prioritize students with financial need for those programs? Or do we know how we would approach?
Yeah, so Connor, when he assesses students, that I don't know if that's one of the indicators is specifically about family need.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
As
so
well
that's
as
one of the
academic.
metrics, along with other criteria
Okay.
for the level of need.
So I have a completely different question. There's one. Okay. So I'm just trying to connect. So we're collecting levy dollars in 2026, right? And then that's the end of that levy. And then I'm looking at this, we were $6.9 million short. And I'm expecting that gap is going to increase if our MSOC, insurance increases, like costs
Yeah.
increase.
Yes.
Like, at what point do we start discussing the next levy and how much we would ask
Mhm.
for? Like,
Right.
how does that process initiate?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I reached out to the individual we've worked with before and said, like, what's the timeline look like? So if we were to do that, would it be in November? Would it be in February of 2026, right? Yeah. So, we would start the school year, I think, having those conversations.
This next.
The
school
20
year?
25, 26.
Yep, so next school year, we have to start having those conversations. And, I think about our strategic plan and the process we're going through. And when I'm able to put together a team, like an advisory team of our community members, these are the kind of conversations we're gonna have.
Yeah.
And, we're the projects that Les and the team just shared, like, yeah, there are other projects that isn't just, those aren't the only
Right.
things that we identify. We just prioritize those for our last levy. So what else kind of support do we need for our facilities, for our campuses, along with, our EP&O, and what are our needs going to be? Hard to predict what's going to happen. Again, we talked about multiple times volatility of our current the market and what, prices. So we need to watch what's happening, continue to be conservative, and then thinking about the future. Yeah, what are those asks going to be? I think what we did today with the bond refinancing certainly helps.
Helpful.
Very, I think, helpful in that, going through with that and completing that.
And I feel like we should highlight that the next time that we ask our taxpayers for money, that we're very conscientious about the fact that they are contributing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think working on our strategic plan too will help with that.
Right.
Plan-
Yep, and we sent out a budget survey, and in our next board meeting, we're going to talk about the budget survey results. So we'll look and see what those that completed the survey, what are they prioritizing? And I would say I've been looking at it. It looks similar to last year when we did it, and when we had some challenges year before that, just like what people are identifying, what they're prioritizing, and where they think there were maybe some areas that we could reduce. Which we've been doing. And so, as I said earlier, we're going to continue to need to do that to match our enrollment. You talked about students that are Washougal students who choice out and choice somewhere else. Yeah, so us working on, what is it that we need to do so those families will remain with us.
Here, yeah.
And I think that community preschool, we heard when we paused with that there was going to be a concern that families were going to make that decision. If they started in another school district, would they just stay in that school district? So, one of the reasons we want to get it going again. And, it isn't just because TK might be, something we're not gonna be able to offer like we have the last 2 years, but it's also, those are our students. So if we can offer that, we want to. But it has to be that it needs to fund itself. We don't have funds to invest in that program. And that's where we've set that mark, and we feel like that will, as long as we have, we say 16 students, there's this minimum number of students that we need to have, and there's some, we could have more than that, but that really is the number. So it'll fund itself with our staffing and our other program needs.
You have a sense, Aaron, of the enthusiasm in the community for the strategic planning process.
Again, we've met with 12 different groups, and those have been staff members and building boosters. I would tell you, it's been a wonderful process for me. And I think we've got a couple pictures I'm going to share with you. Just like when we sat down today, we were with CRG. There were a lot of staff members. We were with JMS boosters. It was a smaller group. The CRG boosters, there were several. We had 2 groups, so it was a large number. And it's there's a definitely, I think it appears to be an interest in they're engaged and they're sharing their thoughts of those questions. So I think there's for the process, we'll see when we put our team together, the steering committee, and start digging into it. But I think that's, well, let me tell you this, there certainly is from me. And the idea that I've shared that our 5 board members are eager to do this, and that you were not a part of our current one. And when I ask staff members, today there was probably half were around in 2017-18, and a third were around in 2012, the last 2 times we've done it. So I think there's some excitement about it. It's also, when we do this, it's at the end of the day.
Saps the excitement a
I
little
do
bit.
have a question about that. So I know a few JMS boosters missed that, and they were asking if you guys are going to have just like an open, like a roundtable-ish type thing where boosters that did miss could maybe be part of it.
So a couple thoughts. They can complete the survey.
Okay.
And so they can share their
Sure.
thoughts through the survey. They could ask to be a part of the strategic steering committee.
Okay.
We hadn't planned on having an open house.
You guys don't want to do another one?
I see.
There was I heard great feedback though. They were impressed that you guys came out and were asking all
It was
great
really
questions.
nice. It was a great conversation.
I'm sad that I missed the
Yeah.
JMS one.
Definitely appreciated that time.
Okay, so do the survey.
Yeah. Did you get your question answered?
Yes.
Thing, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We're at mid-year SIP.
Yeah, we're we're on to our mid-year SIP update discussion.
Yes, so the last time we were together, and I don't know if I used the term homework. Maybe I did, someone did.
I
So-
said I needed an email to tell me what my homework was.
So there was an ask, yeah, so we handed you the mid-year one pager from all of our buildings. And so they looked very different. They had, I think, similar information, but just how it was formatted. And so the ask was, when you had a chance to look at it, did you have a specific one that gave you the information you were looking for? This is something we have not done, is provide you with a one pager. The idea, I think at one point, maybe it's this idea that they would come back and it would go through the process again, just maybe shorter. I thought about that, and I didn't necessarily want to schedule your time to do that, so that if there's a desire to do that next year when we're planning, we could do something like that. I know that we appreciated having them give us their kind of progress check. And they did it like in 12 minutes, or it was 12 minutes each. And so, and then the one pager. So was there, I know, Ida, thank you for sharing your summary. Just her feedback was very helpful and gave me an idea of kind of what you were thinking. Is very helpful for getting the information. So
You
other,
just want
I
each of
already
us to.
submitted my homework.
yeah, so she,
Wow, you're
Good student. Yeah.
What did our rep say? Like, when it's due that day, she does it that day? I know.
if it wasn't for the last minute, we were getting.
Yeah.
I'll second what I just said.
great.
She got the Jane, do you want to start?
I really liked the Canyon Creek Middle School one. I found that one, but actually there was like pieces of each that I liked.
Yeah.
Is it possible for me to just send you a marked up version?
Of course.
Okay,
Yes.
those are in my office.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
So when you look at that Canyon Creek one,
Mhm.
did you notice on the backside was
Yes.
that, did you like that? I think he was the only one who did that. It was.
Yeah, because I like the refresh of here's what we did, and then the challenges and obstacles. I need to have it in front of me.
Yep,
You like the conciseness of.
I'm a bullet point girl. That's what I like.
yep. Okay. Yeah, and then he added the slideshow when he presented to us,
Mhm.
which, gotcha. Okay. Great.
Jim?
I have been in town one day in the
Oh.
last 2 weeks, and I am just finding
You
this
didn't
email
say
right
that.
now.
First say that.
Yep.
That's okay.
What's that?
I think they were a handout. I don't think they were-
Well, I think.
Well, she sent it to me. Yes, I see it. I got it.
That
I
for me, I'll just
apologize.
mark it up on that,
Yeah.
rather than
It's-
photocopy
is that
my
where it is?
paper versions. Yes.
So at the beginning of the year, we got these plans that were many, many pages of PowerPoints. And then to distill that into one page, I thought they did a really good job of doing that. The ones that I appreciated the most were the ones that were more on data and less on narrative. Particularly like the high school and Hathaway. This is the goal, this is where we are, this is what we're gonna do. That's meaningful to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
I like JMS CRGE. I like how it's set up that way. To me, I can read, it's the goal, the focus, the progress type thing. But it's hard for me to read these. And so I love how Canyon Creek did this too. So I could see it just a little bit better,
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, they're all great. They all gave me the information that I need, but I need things in boxes. Because if I have to read it out, I start going, nope. So
I think my problem with the boxes was there wasn't really any data in the boxes. So I'm okay with the boxes if there's like data, but it was very qualitative, and then the tables without a narrative to describe them, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, what is that? What are we
Yeah,
measuring?
I have the same challenge.
I couldn't.
I think that's a general problem with annotating data presentations.
Yeah.
I've
So that's,
dealt with that my whole life, yeah. And it's an hour.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because there wasn't any.
yeah, and I think
No,
if
that
there
makes
was the presentation, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like this. I like having this and that.
Okay, 'cause that was a presentation.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the only thing I would add that I don't think I saw in any of them was, I would love just a green, yellow, red, like green We are fully confident, we are on track, we are crushing it. Yellow, at risk, red, probably not gonna make it. But I also know that that can be somewhat quantitative, so it's fine with the narrative after that, but for me to be able to just look and be like, green, 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 yellow, looks like a good action plan.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a forward.
Yeah,
For everybody.
thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure how we would do that necessarily. I think it would be establishing what if we can sum it up in just here it is overall. I know that Wendy wasn't there when we did this the first time that she presented yesterday, and just talking about the adjustments, like just this is what the data is telling us now. This is how we're adjusting the rest of the school year was just really just tremendous.
Yeah.
And seeing that level of like, and this is when I'm going to do it. So it wasn't just, this is what we're going to do. This is when we're going to do it. This is how we're going to do it, whether it's in their teams or I'm going to do this with my staff, or I'm going to use Cheryl McIntyre in my training. And so I think that we are heading again in the right direction with this. Your feedback is very helpful on what you're looking for and what would be necessary. I think is like an improvement with this. Based on the ones you identified.
Well, and maybe there's even we haven't identified a way to get this data early, so we don't know, right? Because I know we've got some areas like that, and I think it's important to recognize those. We don't have a great way to draw data mid-year. We got to wait until the end, and that's fair.
The other thing about Wendy's yesterday was what she had given was her assessment data for the fall, her assessment data for the winter, and then she projected her,
Based on.
yes, what she needed to meet her goal
Oh, okay.
for what it was for spring. And I haven't seen anybody else set it up quite that way. So I
Okay.
saw that that was a benefit.
So we back up and where the template comes from that you read in the fall, which is a very lengthy document. So it's something the state provides us. It's the title school plan document. So we had to make some minor adjustments to it because not all of our schools are type of schools, but those are title schools have some specific ones they need. We like using that template. It's a very lengthy document, and it does include data and then narrative. And if we could, maybe we could do some real good.
Extracting the critical info.
Yeah. Yep. And we have math, we have ELA, we have science, and then we have like mental health or behavior and looking at that. And so measuring that, and we look at what are we determining metrics for that particular one, and what keeps coming up with our strategic plan around behavior and providing. Today we heard providing support for students, but also for staff and for students who are escalated, strategies. So I think one of the things that we keep hearing is a concern, and sometimes why families make a different choice. So we hear that, and I do believe we are working on that. And it's so we are tracking those numbers as well. It is something that the state also wants us to track and take gains in. Okay, well, so thank you for that feedback. And your other thoughts later on, please share. I appreciate your effort for this. And again, I wasn't constantly this homework, but I do appreciate you sharing. So thanks.
How did they feel about shortening it up?
Yeah.
Did they like it, or was it like, I have so much more to tell you?
I think the feedback we got, we gave them the same feedback, because the other thing that we want to do and prepare for next year is how you guys felt about it. We're going to make a template or develop a template. So the board gets their information and they get a template that maybe they can work with it.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, just trying to design this so you're able to get the information that you need in order to answer questions from your constituents, so you're real comfortable with decisions that we are making and you're making.
Right.
Yep. We ask you to this is what we need when we think about just like our projects, like having the information that we need, that you need to make that decision. So that's we're hoping to improve it and to when we put a timer to it. That's what that question is. It was 12 minutes, and every one of them, wrapped it up at 12 minutes, and it was very intentional, very concise. We told them how many slides they needed to have and the information, and it was, I think they appreciated that part. Okay, and they also enjoy listening to each other and learning from each other. It's been
That's good.
that process. Yeah. Okay.
All right, yes,
Next item.
yes, strategic planning discussion.
Yeah, so just, here's a few pictures I was just discussing. The top right picture, kind of hard to see, that's today. We were with the CRG staff. The left, the gallery walk, we've done this a number of times when we had larger groups. They shared their input on these large post-its, and then we put them up and we do a gallery walk so groups can see what their groups are going to input they're providing. The bottom right is at JMS, say the individuals, the group you were talking about. So that's Mr. Cook there. He really was a part of the
Oh,
team.
yeah.
Looks like he's kind of far away, but he was a part of it. And it was a more of an intimate team. And we had one large post-it that we wrote on it. And we kind of talked about, we kind of wish we would have broken it up. When you're in this, this setting, and the groups today were really large, and you want to have groups of 4 to 5.
Mhm.
And so those were pretty large. Not everyone really wants to contribute in those kind of
Yeah.
groups. So, I think they all felt safe. It was a really good welcoming
Yeah.
feeling, but still
Good
sharing that in the moment. So everyone also gets to complete the survey as well. They want to. So just identifying on the left who we've met with so far. And I wanted to ask you the same questions that we've asked our students and that we ask every team that we meet with. And that's what are the skills and the attributes that we want students to know, and what should they be able to do. And so if you wanted to you have some thoughts about that, some what you heard from our students today, the conversations we've had. And then if you were going to be a part of the steering committee, then you're going to help with looking at all this information and distilling it down to what are those things that our community is prioritizing.
So do you want us to answer those
Yeah,
questions? All right. And it's what do we want students to know and be able to do? Anybody want to start?
Just popcorn this, you can
Yeah,
throw some things
jump
out
on
there.
in.
Well, I mean, yeah, why not start again?
Jane, you're up.
I mean, we'll go with the basics, right? Like read, math, literacy, all that good
Right.
stuff. But I think when I think about what I walked out of high school with potential gaps in, or what I've heard from others, I think financial literacy, especially in today's day and age, is absolutely critical. And I think the ability to, how do I phrase this? The ability to find reputable sources to help form your opinion on matters is becoming more and more critical. And I think what we used in the past, right? Like go to the encyclopedia, it's accurate, no longer applies. And I don't know how we do that, but I think it's going to be key critical to having, educated citizens in the future. Yeah, and I think the other thing I'd really like them to know is the projected job market when they hit 18. Because I don't know how many of them realize how big like trades are becoming and the potential disruption in different markets based on technology. Some have a higher disruption rate, some have lower, so they can make an informed decision about what they want to do.
Yeah, I think I would add to that. They need to know when they're 18 or 17, when they're graduating. I think when they're a sophomore and they're making a decision, if they want to go to
Yes.
Cascadia Tech
Yeah.
and the Skill Center and potentially a trade path. That way, because that decision
Huge.
can really, it's a
Yes.
shortcut
Mhm.
to the trades. Also 8th grade, when they're forecasting in the 9th grade
Yeah.
and what electives they're selecting.
Yep.
As well. And so I thank you for that. I was at a meeting on Friday with a bunch of superintendents and John, who helped us, who's the owns, Gerard, who owns homes, and we had a big part of the toolbox bill and really funded it. He was
Yeah.
there providing
That's great.
the hammers and the equipment that was needed and working alongside our students. And he talks about how we applying the last time together hard skills and soft skills and just the need, as you just said, for trade jobs. And he started to give the example of the I-5 bridge. What's time for the I-5 bridge, the thousands of workers that are going to be given, and whether we have them here or not. And so some of those individuals, I imagine are going to be our students right now, maybe in 5th grade, 6th grade, when it's time.
And so just, yeah, making sure that they're ready to go. Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else?
Yeah, on the I-5 bridge. I have a friend here that is an iron worker who built all of these bridges. He's my age. There's not a big stream of blowing into the iron worker trade. But just a comment. I think the soft skills real important. I appreciate the students' input on that. In terms of how technology impacts things, it's kind of unpredictable. I think about the vineyard industry where for the first 1,000 years, it was hand work with knives or clippers. And in the big agricultural vineyards, it's computerized mechanization for everything. And so somehow equipping our students to be ready for those technological advances that'll happen during their career times. Critical thinking and evaluating information. I know I had a class in high school that was in the 60s. So Madison Avenue certainly was relatively new. It was taking over our world. We really examined advertising because television was new. And I still use those skills in evaluating where the information is coming from, how to interpret it, or how much to use it. Then another thing that we're doing already that I think has been a real positive, but finish the financial literacy thing is huge. Just one aspect I think would help many kids, families out, and that's understanding the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. It's your friend or it's your enemy, depending on which side of that compound interest you're on. And, every graduate should understand how compound interest can work for you. Start saving when you're 18 years old, and how it works against you if you run a big credit card bill at age 18 or school debt or whatever. And then one thing we're doing that I think has really been positive is the high school and beyond plan, really getting families with their children thinking about life as a productive citizen, finding their niche, finding their passion. But those are my comments.
Thank you.
Chuck?
What do we want students to know and be able to do? So much of the school improvement plans and what we do in schools is so cognitive. That is, we measure how they're doing in math and science and ELA. And I think that I can't remember the last time in my adult years that I had to solve two equations with two unknowns.
ChatGPT does it for you now.
So, many years ago, I was in Hood River School District, and I met with business leaders, managers hiring people primarily. And my question of them was, what are you looking for from our graduates? This is Hood River High. And the response overwhelmingly was, we want people who can communicate with each other and with us, because they can teach whatever it is, whatever businesses it is, they will teach them that business. What they need to know is how to work with others. And so what I want students to know and be able to do, and I think Riley really hit, communicate with others, build connections, and learning how to learn. And the brand.
Next room we go. You guys basically said all the things like communicating. I feel like kids don't know how to do basic communication anymore. And I think that's really sad. I feel like kids just don't have those conversations. And they said earlier, more classroom conversations that just don't always revolve around maybe just checking in with each other, but not about math, but in math class. And that there are more than one way to learn. And I think that that's really important for kids to know too, that just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that there's not other ways to learn. And I think that we have a great CT program. I think Margaret Rice is amazing. And I think that maybe more help in that area where I'm trying to put this in words, like one-on-one, like students to be prepared, like what can we do to help them more to be prepared for college? Like she said, like one of the students said, you know, a lot of students don't know yet. What can we do to help those students? I think that's important. Because every senior should have a plan. And if they don't, then I feel like we're failing them. I don't know. I don't really have any other continue, but that's all.
I don't have much to add. I think just generally how the world works and how you can influence it. So, I mean, financial literacy kind of ties to that. But also like how the government works. And like how many people ran for school board during the last election? Like they're all sitting here.
We're looking at them.
And so I think just understanding like the very basics of how the world functions like that.
Yeah, I thought of something else and that I think is missing. I see it in my nieces and nephews and grandchildren of being responsible for yourself. I see younger generations expecting society to provide that responsibility for them. And as somebody who's older, I learned that in my family and in school and just in society, and somehow that's dropped out of our culture.
Thank you for your conversation. I think we're gonna pause on the next one.
Can I ask something about the process?
Yeah.
I see the groups you've met with. I don't know how many more meetings you have, but I think it is important to include community business members and other community members that aren't currently associated with the schools and in that planning process.
Yeah, we're still working on
How to do that, I don't know, faith community or
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
number of opportunities.
Yeah. So what we are missing is I think we're going to thoroughly provide our staff, the WSD community with an opportunity that with Canyon Creek, their leadership team. We're going to be the high school leadership team. David's going to put together those 2 months from GMS. Yeah, we are missing our the community voice, the non-educated voice.
Right.
It's definitely one. Yeah. So
And especially there's some pretty high tech businesses that have moved into the port.
Yeah.
And our government leaders there in the city of Washougal, and I think they would provide valuable people.
you know, I think Wes and I talked a little bit about it. What we're hearing from students. And our students in that one class, or middle school class, and parents and staff, very similar.
We're saying all the same.
Yeah, characteristics, attributes that are being identified,
Mhm.
and what the district can start doing, and continue doing, or keep doing. The stop seems to be a challenge. What should we stop doing? The groups came up with 1 or 2 thoughts about what we can stop doing. It's then interesting that like maybe I probably already shared this with you. Elementary parents don't necessarily know the middle school experiences. Middle school, they don't really know unless they have a child who's older what the high school experiences. So they'll bring up things to start doing that we're doing. They just don't know.
Haven't got there yet.
We have to communicate that, or it just isn't something on their radar.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really matter how you communicate it. Sometimes the context matters.
Right.
And you don't really know that's something that you're going to be wanting to know about.
Right.
Future. So that we had some ideas on what we can do, and when we highlight experiences like we did when we sent a mailer to 10,000 addresses, that hopefully it's read and individuals see, and then you see probably over the years and more graphics, larger pictures, less text, and hopefully people see.
It's
So hard to get.
Is there any way to get feedback from people that graduated within the last year to 4 years? Because I think about it like when I do training programs at work, I don't ask the people going through it. I ask the people that went through it 6 months ago, like,
What do you mean?
What worked, what didn't work, what was really effective that we need to make sure we keep doing, like,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it is a good, it's a wonderful.
I don't know how you do it.
Continues to be a challenge.
Yes.
On how do we track them and ask them, so
Yeah.
it's, yeah. But I appreciate that idea, I think there's, we could do like some individual conversations, ask the same questions.
Maybe some students that we know we're still in contact with, because you know, or siblings.
Yeah,
that they
again, I talked to a one who graduated 6 years ago, who's one of our employees.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
that counts.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
So we're not gonna do, like,
Yeah, I think we can wait on, in the next question, yeah. I think we
Okay.
can wait on that.
all right,
Next.
sounds good. All right, so we're on to policy 3205, sexual harassment of student.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
good.
so yeah, before, yeah, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
oh, sorry.
I forgot about this slide, and I think I sent this to you. In my communication, like the state has identified, we have learning standards. And these four, and when you look at these four that the state has identified, they're very similar to what we have said. And, you know, I think, and maybe Jane, you started off, like, of course, we want them to be able to read, write, and compute. So that's, you know, that first one is, and then can they communicate? And we talk a little bit about how, like, what kind of communication are we talking about? Like, writing an email, conversing in person, over Zoom, how are they communicating? And what are they doing with that information? And then two, like specifically standards, content standards. Financial literacy has come up so many times in our meetings with boosters and staff, the importance of financial literacy. There is a bill right now that I think is moving through that's going to increase what we already are doing with financial literacy or the expectation. Three, I think I know you mentioned that months ago as far as like critical thinking. So thinking logically, what is it you're doing with the information, integrating technology into as you're gaining information and fluency. And then four is really about like finances. And if you want something, and like how are you going to earn the money to get that? And then what if you charge it? What's going to be the impact of that? Anything of those lessons that maybe you learned, and I learned as a young adult, in some cases the hard way. So anyway, that our state, I think that, I don't know that this is something that I had shared before with you. I don't think so, but when we sit down with our strategic steering committee, this is going to be one of the first things we share. Like, this is what the state's expectations are for us and our role for our students. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so yes, I think you're right. We have this situation with our board docs migration. So I don't have much of a discussion there. It's nothing to say. What
Sounds like
you
it's
know about
happening.
board docs, it's gonna change, it's gonna be enhanced, it's gonna be better, it's understanding, there's gonna be training, this is inevitable, you don't have a chance. Okay.
It doesn't cost any more money, does it?
It doesn't cost- you know what, I don't know necessarily, I think there's gonna be a slight increase. This is an important source for us or access point for lots of information, really how we communicate, where our board docs are. I think there's going to be enhancements in how we communicate within this application. And there will be, I think, around mid-May. We just need to let them know that we're ready and to start the process, because there's numerous steps. And when I asked Corey earlier today about, do we have a community identify specifically when, she said not really until we start the process. So once we get going, then we'll determine, and the professional development or the training is going to be in a variety of ways. It could be, you're going to have access to information, experience through reading it, through probably some videos, some of those types of trainings, or I don't know, certainly if you're just in person, is that a possibility, or Zooming with one of the consultants? So
Can't imagine it being like
I don't think it's
too crazy.
I don't think it's going to be that challenging.
Yeah.
Improvements are going to be that complicated.
Right.
It's just going to look different. The idea is it's going to be better.
Any questions, anybody?
Just a heads up.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate
Lauren,
that.
very high expectation.
Yeah, now you set it up bar really high. I want this to be flashy. All right, now we're on to J, which is policy
Yes.
3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited, and this will be our first reading on this.
Yes, so when you look at it, there isn't a lot of updates. There's some minor changes on the first page. Similar to some other policy revisions we have made, this one is really required. It's due to statute update. So we are now catching up to that update and making the necessary adjustments. So when you see on page 2 at the bottom, specifically the red text, and what's identified right away is like what when we have an employee is going somewhere else, and we are aware that there's been there's public comment, this individual has been engaged in sexual misconduct, then that we're not allowed to do that based on this provision.
We're not allowed to say something or
No,
to not say something, right?
we're not allowed to not say
Required to
something.
say something.
we're required
Yes,
to share the information.
yes, I'm,
This has been a problem in schools for many
Ever.
years, where you recommend somebody out when you want to get rid of them, give them a positive recommendation. This is specific to sexual harassment type issues, but generally as an ethical thing,
yes.
Thank you. brought this
then
up before.
nobody in our district should give a positive recommendation for an employee who's not a positive employee.
I strongly
This one
agree.
just specifically is about sexual harassment. But
Yes.
completely agree with you on that.
This gives us the backing of we're following policy when we don't
Right.
give you the
Exactly.
recommendation versus
Yep, so that's the
retaliation.
a major adjustment there on this policy. And the last one is a policy review with updating annually the board. And, it continues to be a bit of a challenge with involving staff, students, volunteers, and parents in reviewing this process. So the best way to review this process, what we do is we have complaints, we have investigations, we meet those that are individuals that are responsible for those particular areas, those investigations, the allegations, and we meet our regulations, making sure that we are following the process and procedures. So that's just addition to this particular policy you see. So not many changes, but important updates in this policy.
I have a question about, I support the language. I worry about the legal implications of the phrase has probable cause to believe and how that's really defined in an individual. You're our legal here, Chuck. One could face a lawsuit from an innocent employee where someone had some rumor. And what's the line between a rumor and a probable cause?
Well, probable cause, there has to be a basis.
Right,
And so an example is in law enforcement, to get a search warrant, you have to have probable cause.
right,
You have to be able to present some evidence
right.
as opposed to having heard a rumor or hearsay.
In law enforcement, there's a judge who makes that decision.
Yeah.
Who would make the decision
Whether there
for
is
us,
probable cause
right.
or not. Yes.
And who would make that decision in the school district? For whether there is probable cause to suspect.
I would assume.
Typically that happened during the investigation.
Right, so yeah, yes, so versus a rumor, right? So we're going to investigate concerns or rumors regarding the employee.
So would have to rise to the level of having I'm just
Yes, I would
exploring
say yes, that we've engaged
in some kind of
some
investigation.
allegation.
Okay,
And to be clear, we wouldn't disclose that that's why we're not providing a recommendation. We're not providing a recommendation.
Right, it's just
Yeah.
where we
So we're not gonna give them any we've
Fair enough.
heard this, it's
Yeah.
just, no, we cannot provide a positive recommendation.
We also
to that
work with our
employee.
council,
yeah, I'm sure.
any of these concerns. That those are typically one, first calls that we make is seeking advice.
Right.
Type situations, and so to your point, what we are able to disclose, and this addition to this policy and making sure that, so typically it's going to be a building, a district leadership, building position of building administrator or the ones that are identified.
But
They would know
Good
this
question.
information.
right,
Yeah.
but even in the judicial system, we've seen examples where probable cause for one judge didn't rise to the level of probable cause for the accused, let's say, but it just, I'm sure legal counsel is on, I just asked the question.
Any other questions about this one?
I do not.
Thank you.
Great. Looks like we will adjourn at 8:34 p.m.